And that's basically it. We've got all the code there to get the word from the user and ensure that it's of at least of the right length. So now let's ask the user to input a character. So in order to do that, we'll have to declare a character variable. So we'll just call it maybe search ch for search character. This is the character that we're going to search for in the word. And I'll initialize that just simply to the character 0. You could really put any character here that you can find on the keyboard, just a single character though. And notice that when we write a character literal, we put it in single quotes, whereas a string literal is in double quotes. So you see that we have double quotes here. So these are very different animals behind the scenes, the character versus the string. All right, so let's prompt the user. So we'll use cout, insertion operator, enter a character, and the program will tell you how many times it appears. Let's see, appears. Get another P in there. Appears in the word. And we can just make use of our variable word here so we can be generic in the way we write this. Okay. And maybe we'll put a period on the end here and use the indel. All right. And if you want to, you can split this up. So I'm going to move my insertion point maybe after the word tell and hit enter, and Eclipse will automatically split that word up for me. Make sure you do come back and write an insertion operator here so that that's doing what it's supposed to. Okay. So now we need to do a cin. So we'll do a cin extraction operator and then use search ch so that we'll store it into that particular variable. And now, once we have our word and our character, we can now look at iterating over that particular word. So what does that mean? We want to be able to have the same number of iterations as we have characters in our word. So we have 3 different repetition control structures that we looked at: while, do while, and for. And we know that the for loop is used for counter control repetition, meaning we know exactly how many times we want to perform the body of that looping structure. So it sounds like the for loop is a good choice, since we know that we can get the length or the size of our word, and that will tell us how many times we need to do the comparison operations. Okay, so we'll write for int I, assignment statement 0. So this is our initial statement. We're just simply declaring a variable I set to 0. And our loop continuation condition is going to be as long as I is less than, and we can be very generic here and just say word.size, or we could say word.length. Okay, no arguments there. That was a typo briefly, but it should just be word.size, open paren, close paren, semicolon. Don't forget the semicolon. And then we can have our post statements, meaning the statement that gets executed after we've executed everything in the body. And that'll just be to increment our loop counter. So we basically define a loop counter here, and we increment the loop counter over here. Okay? So we'll put an open brace here and a close brace here. So all of our pseudocode is inside the body related to getting a character and then testing the match and incrementing a counter. So how do we go about getting a character? Well, we can specify the name of our variable, which was word, use the yet operation, and then we can specify what position. And we could write in something like 0, and that would just simply get the first character of that word. But notice that that wouldn't change. So every time that we would go through this for loop, it would always get the first character. We don't want to do that. We want to have something that actually changes. Well, the neat thing is that our loop counter here is initialized to 0, and it gets incremented by 1 each time through the body of the loop. So we can actually use I here. So every time we go through the body of the loop, it will increment the value of I. And you'll notice here that the last time that we can actually get into the body of this for loop is whenever I is still less than word.size, or the length of the word. So say that our word was 5 characters in length. So the last time through, I would be 4, but that's okay because we saw that the last valid index would be 1 less than the word size. So this loop continuation condition is correct. Some of you may have thought that maybe we should do less than or equal to, but actually less than works out well because the last valid index of our string is always going to be 1 less than the size. So this is a good expression to have. Okay, so we can use that and we can just assign it to some character, maybe just the character and the variable name there is ch. And don't forget the semicolon on the end because all of our statements must end with a semicolon. So now that we have a character, we can look at testing to see if that character matches the character that we're looking for. So we'll see if our search character, so search ch, is equal to, make sure you do equal and not just simply 1 equal. 1 equal is our assignment operation, and our equal is for comparison, testing to see if two things are equal to one another. Okay, so we want to test to see if our search character is equal to the character that we just extracted. And if that is the case, we'll scroll down a bit here. If that is the case, when we want to increment a counter. So we haven't declared a variable here to keep a count, but let's go back above this for loop here and just declare a counter. And in later videos, I'm going to discuss this idea of scope and local variables, and we'll figure out maybe a little bit more of why we want to declare this counter here as opposed to maybe inside of this for loop. So just go along with the ride right now, and we'll come back and explain in detail in a few videos later on. So we'll increment the counter. So we'll just say counter plus plus semicolon. So that's just the same thing as saying what? Counter is equal to counter plus 1. That's just our shortcut way of saying that. Try to make this look a little bit neater. And that's basically our for loop there, right? And whenever we go and run this program, I'll probably use the debugger so we can actually step through the for loop and see the value of I changing and look at what character we're examining. That's where the debugger really comes in to being a lot of fun, is whenever you're using repetition control structures and seeing the values of variables changing as we repeat the same instructions. All right, so now we're ready for our output statement. So let me scroll down a bit. All right, so we want to output the number of times that we found that particular character. So I'll say cout, insertion operator, the number, let's see, the number of, and I'll use insertion operator, number of whatever character it was, and we'll use maybe apostrophe S here in this string literal. So we'll get some character here, so maybe it's A's or L's or B's. That'll be expressed appropriately, so the apostrophe S there in the word. And we'll just make use of our variable word again. And then we'll say is, let me put a space here. And then we'll say, we'll make use of our counter variable. Okay. Now the counter variable could be named anything. I just called it counter. You could have called it count. Maybe that would have been a better name. Okay, and then once we have that, we'll go back and make use of our new line character. Let me put a period there too. Okay, and that's pretty much our program. So not too long of a program. We made use of a do while. We got input from the user. We also made use of a for loop. And maybe after we run this program, we'll come back and check it out. Maybe we'll write this in terms of a while loop. So let's go ahead and save this, build it, and then run it. Okay, so let's go ahead and save our program, and then we'll build it. And it looks like we had one warning here. It says comparison between signed and unsigned integer expression. So if you double click on that particular warning here, it'll take you to the line where the problem was. And you may even get some more information here if you hover over this little caution warning comparison. And it says the same thing, comparison between signed and unsigned integer expression. So it's talking about this comparison here. It turns out that word.size, this function, doesn't return a signed version of an integer. It returns an unsigned version. But we can cast it if we like to get rid of that warning. It really doesn't matter too much to have that warning, but we can cast that as an int value and save it and build it, and we should be able to get rid of that warning. Okay. So now that we've built it, we'll go ahead and run it. So let's run this thing here, see how it works. It says enter a word that is at least 5 characters in length. Okay, or at least 5 characters. I'm going to enter something that's not 5 characters, maybe the word pig. And we can see that we have to enter the word again. So if we kept entering in words that were not of the right length, maybe the word tree, still not 5 characters. But if we said hello, then it should be okay. Now it says enter a character in the program. Will tell you how many times it appears in the word hello. So I'm going to type in L. Put an L. It says the number of L's in the word hello is 2. So it looks like our program is running as we expect. Now one thing that you may want to do is run this through the debugger just so you can see what's going on in the looping structure. Okay, so before we run our program in the debugger, I did want to make one change here. So our last line of code, at the very end, we made use of the /n new line character. I want to get rid of that and actually change it and make use of the endl. We know that the endl operation is going to flush out any characters we have immediately to the console as opposed to waiting at some time later if we had the /n. So this is a much better to have this as opposed to the /n when using the debugger. So go ahead and save that. Click on build. So go ahead and build our program. And now instead of clicking on the run, click on the little bug for debug. And it should switch perspectives for us and start us at the very beginning of main. And we'll go ahead and start stepping through our program. So using our step over button, or you can also click on F6 or hit F6 to step over. So we'll step over. We see some variables coming into scope here. And we'll now step over again. And now we enter into the do while loop. So we are going to execute this set of instructions at least one time. Okay, step over a couple of times. Now we got to enter a word that has at least 5 characters. I'm going to go ahead and enter in pig again, just so you can see that it's going to repeat this operation. So type in pig and then hit enter. And now it's going to test to see if pig, the number of characters is less than 5. It is less than 5, so we do that operation again. Okay, so we got to enter in a word. So step over a couple of times, and this time we'll type in hello. And hit enter. And now it's going to test again, and this time we'll not have to repeat that operation since this ended up being false. So since it was false, we did not repeat that operation. And now we're going to enter in a character, so go ahead and step over a couple of times. Eventually we'll get a prompt there. And now we need to enter a character, and the program will tell us how many times it appears in the word hello. So we'll enter in the lowercase l and hit enter. And now we'll initialize our counter variable to being 0. So you can see that value 0 there being associated with our variable counter. And now we're going to simply step through our for loop. So when we first come into our for loop here, it's going to initialize this variable I to being 0. So we step over, and it's also going to test this loop continuation condition. So it's going to test to see if 0 is less than 5 in this particular case, since we typed in hello as our word. So step over. So we see that I is 0. So we're able to get into the loop body here. And now we're going to get the character at the first position. So the one at the 0 position, which is going to be the lowercase h. So go ahead and do a step over. So we can see that character ch has been assigned to, or h has been assigned to the variable ch. And now we're going to do a comparison between search ch and ch, so the character that we're searching for, and the first character. So we know that that's not going to be a match, so we will not increment the counter. We will not get inside this particular if statement here. So I'll do a step over, and now we're back to the top of our for loop. And what's going to happen now is we'll increment the value of I. It'll now be 1, and we'll test to see if 1 is less than 5. Which it is. So that kind of all happens in one motion if we do this step over. So I was incremented to 1, and we did test that. We were able to get inside the loop body again. We'll get the next character at the position with the index value of 1. So that's going to be E. So you can see that we have an E here. We'll do another comparison there to test E and L, see if they're the same, and they're not. So we get back to the top of the for loop here. And now we'll test to see, well, we'll first increment the value of I and test to see if the value of 2 is less than 5, which it is. So we'll get back into the loop body. You can see that I was incremented to 2 here. And now we'll get the next character. And this time, the character that we'll get is the L. So now we have the L here associated with CH. And in that case, once we do that comparison, and we know that lowercase l is equal to L, and so we're going to increment our counter. So our counter will be bumped up to 1. So we found one instance of that particular character that we're looking for in the word that was typed in. So step over again, and now we're back to the top. And if we bump up the value of I this time, it's going to be 3. 3 is still less than 5. So we're able to get back into the body. We get the next character, which is another L. Okay, so we have L here. And we'll test to see if that L is the same as the thing that we're looking for, which it is. So we bump up the counter again. So the counter value is now 2. And we'll step over one more time. Okay, I is now 4. We're still able to get into the loop body, so this time we'll get the character in the last position, the index value of 4, which is the O. O is not equal to L, and we'll test one more time. This time I will be 5. 5 is not less than 5, so we drop out of that for loop there. And now we'll just simply display the output to the user. So the number of L's in the word hello is 2. And that's basically all the program. You can terminate it at this time and just clicking on the stop button, and we can switch perspectives back to our normal editing perspective.